Every single person in this world has a story to share. Your story is your superpower, and it's unique to you. In sharing it with the world, you can impact millions of people. If you keep it to yourself, you are doing the world a disservice. This is Dela. I'm the host of Dela's Voice, and I help you share your superpower with the world.
Hello everybody, and thank you again for joining another episode of Dela's Voice Sunday live talk show. Once again, I have the opportunity to show up here and bring you fantastic stories, incredible journeys of inspiration to hopefully inform you, inspire you, motivate you to change your life for the better. What can I say about grief? Grief of losing a child. No parent ever wants to go through that. And the thought of it is devastating. But it's a part of life. And a lot of parents do go through this. And my guest today is one wonderful lady who has gone through this adversity. I think the biggest adversity a parent can go through, and has come out and has risen above, and is telling her story today in the hopes of bringing back joy into grieving parents' lives. A little bit about my guest, Erin Chandler. She is an intuitive guide, a psychic medium, author of her book, Love You, Ava Baby. In this book, she walks us through everything that happens, the struggles of grief, the aftermath of losing a child and having to deal with so much around her. Her desperation and her hopelessness and her dark moment. And then she brings us into light and hope. And today she's living her life with joy. She's hoping to spark that joy in you. If you're a grieving parent, I hope you take some inspiration from today's talk. If you know grieving parents, please share this talk with them, because you just never know how you can touch another life. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the wonderful, the beautiful, the incredible Erin Chandler on Dela's Voice.
Dela, hi. Thank you so much. That was the nicest intro I think I've ever had.
Oh my.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's so nice to have you here, Erin. Thank you so much.
I'm so thrilled to be here and happy to share on your platform. It's amazing.
I asked you, Erin, what could you talk about for an hour without getting prepared? You sent me a bunch of stuff, actually. And one of them was sole purpose of grief. And I thought that was so interesting. So it's a play on words. But to me, that was, let's hear about that. Because I think one of the most, one of the first questions a parent asks when they go through grieving a loss of a child is, why? Why? And so understanding why you did, and oh my gosh, Okay. So let's talk
Where do you
about
want to
that. What
start?
do you think? Is that a good place to start?
The sole purpose of grief? Yeah, it definitely is. I guess it can intertwine with the story regardless of which way we put it out there.
Yeah.
So for the sole purpose of grief, it really is a play on words, Dela. It's true. And everybody's path through grief is so different, but there's all of these places that they are identical, whether you've lost a child or a spouse or a parent. There is so many actual logical similarities. The sole purpose of grief, I did not come to on my own. I can't take credit for that. That was my daughter in spirit. And as we get into this conversation, that will become very apparent as to how that can be and why that is, and how that came about. So the sole purpose of grief, if you think about it, we're all here in our lives. We're all going to experience death, the death of a loved one. We're all going to die as well at some point when we have our time. And we're all in a consistent state of change. Those are the only two permanent things that we have in this life, is death that we know of and change. And those are the two
and
things.
Taxes.
Yeah, I disagree. There's some states that don't have taxes, but here, yes. Yeah. It used to be death and taxes, but for me, I flipped it to death and change.
Change is so true.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, in society, generally, those are the two things that we fight to stop, that we're afraid of. And that kind of leaves us in a perpetual state of fear and trying to avoid the very thing that is. So when you talk about grief, it brings up both of those permanent things that we're all trying to resist or fight against for a lot of people, not everyone. But the sole purpose of grief is what happens when you die. This is a change I did or didn't expect or didn't want or wish I could go back and change. But if you think about it, grief is actually a tool to break you open. Each one of us will experience it in many different facets, but the purpose of grief is to break you open, literally. It covers every foundation of your life, what you think about living, what you think about dying. It covers your relationships. It covers what you think about yourself. It covers your past, it covers your present, and it covers your future. It literally breaks you open for the evolution of soul, diving deeper into who you are and what you want and what your purpose is in life. And the beauty of this is it also, a lot of people, when they're in grief, it brings up things from their past that have not actually been fully dealt with, or it reminds them of other things in their past that come up that maybe haven't been fully seen or fully expressed. Grief calls us. It calls our soul to express and embody every aspect of emotion and life and experience that we've had. And the outcome of that is always going to be, when you express yourself fully and you're witnessed in a place where every aspect of you is seen, all of your old traumas, the roots of everything you've experienced in your life that stops you from expressing who you are in life and being and doing the things that you love to do that bring you joy, comes from those roots. So the thing that is the hardest thing we don't want to deal with, which is grief, that's actually our soul saying, no, this is your opportunity to love and express yourself fully and empty out your vessel and heal the past so that you can be a clear vessel and not have all that stuff hanging on to you. We don't move forward in our society with grief, Dela, in my experience, and pretty much everyone I've worked with, is we have a system that's set up to either positively invalidate us. So a lot of times when people go to some therapists, it is tell us what you think, and you just talk about what you think, which is valuable and it is being witnessed. However, there's a stigmatism, or there's roots around therapy that has a lot of conditions that make people fearful to be seen in that particular setting. And in addition to that, I couldn't express me personally. My daughter, Ava, at that point had come to me in spirit. She's the one who showed up and said, you need to see a therapist. And my thought was, I've seen a lot of therapists and they all made it worse and positively invalidated. When it comes to grief, you can't say, change your thought, change your life, which is a very valid method of using for specific things in life and retraining the brain, emotions and things like that. But when it comes to grief and to trauma, you absolutely cannot say, I feel sad, I'm going to try and feel happy now, because you literally did not allow yourself to express the very thing you're experiencing. And if you feel that way, it's because you need to express that. And there's a hidden pearl in it. There's always something to be uncovered. And grief is layers. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to grieve today and that's it. There are layers, because it literally is covering your entire life, whether you recognize it or not. It is pulling all of those things out, your experiences, your relationship with the person who passed away, the people around you's relationships with the person that passed away. So this whole purpose of grief is literally to break you open for profound evolution, joy, healing, healing so much of the past.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's really incredible. And then in addition, everything you believe in grief suddenly becomes not untrue, but it's almost like you question everything. For me, I think losing a child, it did bring up the question of what happens when you die? Why did this happen to me? Was I being punished? What did I do to deserve this? Why couldn't I save her? Why didn't I know how I'm her mother? My job was to keep her safe. And this is like an utter failure. I didn't even know why is that? And then you go through all your shoulds and this and that and the other thing. So what it's actually doing is not only identifying the past, present, and the future all together in one big mucky puddle, it allows us to process through those things of perceived outcomes, what we thought life would be, what we thought it should have been prior to what it is in the present moment. And I really can't help but say our society really robs ourselves of the whole purpose of grief. And so what happens is my definition, and it actually came from another child in spirit named Jaden, who's amazing. And her mom gave me permission to share this. She explained it in such a very visual, specific way. She said, if you look at a beaker from the science lab, Jaden's like an amazing teenager. And she passed away suddenly in a motorcycle accident, car accident. And when she came through and said this, it was very, very clear for both her mom and I, because this is part of the process. It's connecting with your loved one in spirit, is grieving with them instead of for them, is profoundly healing and makes you reevaluate everything that you think about life, that you think about death, how you perceive the world around you. It literally changes everything. And the beauty of it is, you are fully seen by God, spirit, the universe, source, in every capacity. And what better way to do that? Because grief just broke you open so that you would be able to receive the guidance from your loved one and heal your entire past so that you get to enjoy your future. But we don't, because it's very unorthodox if you think about it. Mm-hmm. But that's the reason why the people I work with have such rapid transformation, and these kind of heavy, traumatic, tragic, horrible things that nobody wants to have happen. It's because we're marrying those two pieces of having a space where you're fully seen in every aspect with no judgment. None of those things that actually stop us. And it's what a gift to witness somebody in all aspects of their experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the shameful. And in addition, it's also giving a gift to allow yourself to be totally seen, because how many of us actually do that? It's scary.
And yeah. I imagine a lot of grieving parents stop living.
Absolutely.
I mean, the families break up and marriages break up, and then the rest of the kids, they suffer. And I think everybody suffers because of this exact thing you just said, is that we're not equipped to heal properly. We're not equipped to deal with death properly. And so what you do, Erin, is so impactful, because what you do is you heal people, you heal families. And so my question to you is this. Obviously, you weren't born with this. You were born with this talent. You just didn't know it. Do you think that was a part of your soul purpose of grief?
Absolutely. And Dela, so I firmly believe that everyone is an intuitive. We all come here born with it. We don't forget that piece of us. It's almost like we're conditioned to not look within, to not develop that innate internal compass that we have. So for me, in my life and my experience, absolutely, if I did not know what it was like to be completely disconnected, I certainly would not know what it's like to be completely connected. I wouldn't have understood the value of one versus the other. It's kind of like the contrast aspect of it, right? I don't know what's good if I don't know what's bad. I don't know what's my right if I don't know what's my wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same capacity. And I think the beauty of this is that the way that I teach people how to connect is literally by stripping down, healing the past and identifying all those things, grieving with their loved one, and then stripping down the ideas of conditioning and set beliefs that we've been given by institutions, by churches, religions, families, all of our experience outside of us, that actually are just covering our intuitive connection, because everybody is connected. You can't not connect, but you can layer so much stuff on top of it that you don't hear it.
It's just dusty. We need to dust it off.
You got it. Yeah.
That's it. Dust it. Yeah. So let's look at some of the comments, and then
sure.
We'll be right back to the story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going up to make sure we say hi to everybody. And so I've got Tammy here. Hi, Tammy. Mary D'Agostino's here. She says hello to both of you. Marissa's here, and she says hello.
Hi.
Deborah says we go through what we go through. You said that, and Carolyn says, "So good to see you, Erin." And Marianne says, "My husband died 3 years ago. A lot came after. A lot came back from my trauma."
Mm-hmm.
Pantea Calhorse here, and she says hello to both of you, my favorites. I love you. And Debbie says, wow, I got chills. Me too, Debbie, me too. Debbie says, as a nurse of 40 years, I can say what you do is so important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Julie says, Erin, you simply amaze me with your wisdom, guidance, and love. I don't know where I would be without you.
Oh, is that Julie Jaden's mom?
Julie Ardell.
Yes, that's okay. Jaden's mom. Yeah.
Wow.
So we were just talking about Jaden.
And Harish Mehta, my good friend Harish, is from India. He's watching all the way from India. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we go back and find out? I mean, it's all in your book, and I highly suggest everybody to please purchase this book, Love You, Ava Baby by Erin E Chandler. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about how you discovered all of this.
Yes, I think that's part of the magic. Yeah, because I didn't discover how on my own. So when Ava died in 2010, it was very sudden and unexpected. And because there were no coping tools for grief that allowed me to safely express how I felt without being told you should feel a different way, it really compounded into, it covered every aspect of my life. My relationships broke down. I became very, very ill. So over a span of 7 years, it just got worse and worse and worse. We had to sell our home. We had no money. It was just like one thing after the other, to the point that I couldn't work anymore because my body was at a full red light stop.
Yeah.
I could not function. And through that experience, I got to a point where absolutely hopeless, Dela. And the reason I lost hope was because I could not voice my voice. I couldn't even have a safe space to allow myself to have that voice. There's many days where I would sit in my car at work and I would cry. I would sit in there and I would bawl my eyes out. And then I would walk back into my work with a big smile on my face because other people couldn't handle the depth of my grief, or even most of them didn't know. So for me, I went on for 7 years, and it really deteriorated everything that I thought that I knew. It deteriorated there is nothing, absolutely nothing that was untouched by grief and sadness. So when people get to a point where they've tried all these different things, and I tried therapy. I saw lots of specialists. There's so many things that I did try, but none of it worked. So I got to the point where I had no hope. And I thought, I have no hope. I can't benefit my living children. I certainly am of no benefit here. And all I'm doing is suffering, and it's unending. So in that darkness, I guess you could say, the darkness of that, I lost hope. And I decided that I was going to make a plan to end my life, because there really was what's the point when you have no hope? It's very bleak. It's very dark. So in that moment, I went out into the woods one morning, and this was where I actually made the decision to, like, actively, I decided, mind, body, and spirit, that I was going to take this action and plan this out. And I went into the woods, and I said very little. The only thing I said was, God, I give up. I'm done. I can't do it. It was and you know what's interesting? It was surrender, but I felt relief, Dela. I felt relief that I didn't have to suffer anymore. My kids, I could not parent my other children. How do you parent when you are not okay in any capacity? Yeah. So I went into the woods, and I said that. I told no one I went there. No one in my family had any idea what was going on. I had honed that smiley face to such a perfection that I can't believe that. So a lot of people, when they think people who have depression and things who are suicidal are very good at saying that they're okay. Yes. Very good. It's very trained because it's been cultivated over years. It doesn't just like, oh, I'm just depressed this day. So I told no one knew. And a couple of days later, I got a message from like an extended family member who also had no idea what was going on. Just prior to that, my relationship with my spouse had totally ended. And that in itself is a loss too, right? So it was loss after loss. But that for me was the final straw for me. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess you could say, for that term. And she reached out, and one of her messages was, your daughter Ava has been coming to me crying, and they're saying that you gave up, and you cannot give up. And Dela, it was like a light bulb went off. I had told no one that I had developed a plan, in the process of developing a plan to end my life, because she was gone. I couldn't function. There was no help around me. And here it is, the person and the spirit and the soul that really, I don't want to say she destroyed my life, but her death destroyed my life, was showing up when I was about to end my life through someone who I didn't even know was a medium. I had no idea. So up until this point, clearly I was not a medium, or rather was unaware of that capacity for me to even be able to consider it. But that moment was, hope is, if you think about Pandora's box, that whole story of mythology where all of this stuff comes out, the only thing left in the box is hope. Hope is so fragile, but so powerful. It literally gives you the strength to keep going. And I was out. And I was so out that my daughter shows up and pushes somebody, because she really didn't want to send me a message, because she's not telling people she's a medium at that point. She has no idea what's going on with me. It's a total opposite. My daughter had told her that it was life and death, crying to her saying she gave up, she can't. So she went out on a limb and randomly sent that to me, and which took a lot of bravery and courage, and it saved my life.
What was your reaction at that point, Erin? Were you open to this concept of?
Do you know, I think when you have surrendered to, I have no idea what to do and I can't do it anymore, I think anything at that point would give you hope. And, you know, for me, all the things that I believed in that were there to keep me safe and would help me across the board, all those things that I was told help us, and they all failed me, and failed me so disappointingly. So to have something show up that said exactly what I said within a few days was like, I immediately had validation that I wasn't alone. I immediately had permission to believe in something, because why is it that even though that's not tangible, why wouldn't I believe in that when everything else failed me that I was told I should believe in? So it really was, I was stripped of everything, Dela, and I needed to be. Yeah.
That moment when you went out into the woods and said, I give up, that is surrender. That is, okay, that is the moment, excuse me, that you opened up to receiving whatever messages were going to come in. Before that, you were not ready.
Yeah, I had so much stuff layered in grief that I couldn't get out. How does spirit get in if I'm so full of all of these things? Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of people in tears right now.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to also point out, Jaden, I want to go back to Jaden, because sometimes I get squirrely and I move around. The beakers. So that story is a prime example of her visual and explanation that she gave us. So if you look at the beaker, you are the beaker. I am a beaker. And when we have grief and loss, we get filled with all these emotions. Grief is love. Grief is not anger. Grief is not all of the icky, dark emotions that come with grief. They're actually separate, but they all occur at the same time, because you're unpacking everything that you thought was true is no longer true for the most part. So in the beaker, if you imagine you pour this liquid grief in and all the emotions that go with it, and it's black, let's say it's dark and it's black and it's icky. And what happens is it's so icky and so intense that when we go out to say it, people will say, oh, well, think about the happy times. And you're so lucky that you got to have a child and God had a better plan for you. So the second somebody's saying that is, they're actually saying, I'm not comfortable with your profound loss. So I need you to like put a different spin on it, because I'm not comfortable with it. And unfortunately,
I don't like to look at that ickiness in you.
And I get that, because I've been that person too. And I did that before to people unknowingly. It's not to point fingers. It's when you experience both sides of it, it became very, very clear over my process of grief, where the issues are. And it's not that it's anyone's fault. It's just that we don't know that, because people don't talk. Right. So when we don't express it out, we put a lid on it. Hold on. Everybody outside of me is not okay with me doing this. That means I can't express that, and I don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to hold it all in. So when we put that lid, the little stopper on the beaker, it gets bigger and bigger, and it grows, and you light the Bunsen burner up and it heats it up. And all of a sudden your vessel, your body bursts. It breaks down. There's nowhere else for it to go. Jaden's highlight was, you're supposed to express it. That's why it's there. You're here as a vessel, as a human being, to be a human being, to experience loss, joy, love, the whole gamut. And everyone's gamut is slightly different. And that's what makes everyone's journey so beautiful and unique and rare. So when her explanation or visual of this was, if you can just take off the top and allow yourself to be seen and allow that dark to filter up, I'm the sparkle from up above, I guess you could say up above, but all around, that's been trying to get into your vessel to help you to mix in with that black and glitter, to help you push it out so that you can express it. You can't understand grief or your emotions if you do not express them, if you do not explore them. So once you have the opportunity to do that, Jane was like, then I can just come in all full circle and you can be connected with me and I can enjoy it. That's essentially what she was saying. And all I could think was, I said to her mom, Julie, it's been every client that I have is a profound experience, Dela. They're all different. They're all incredibly healing. And it would not be possible without our loved ones in spirit. And they're all there waiting. The second you decide that you're ready or you're willing to go somewhere that maybe you haven't gone before, the second you're willing to question, why do I not believe in spirit or mediums or things like that? The second you ask questions about why you have a certain belief, you allow a different answer or a deeper knowledge to come into you. And Jaden has wowed me. Julie can attest to that during our sessions. She's just been one heck of a light, that girl, and she will change people's lives just as much through her passing in spirit as she did in life. Of that, I am definitely sure.
Okay, so going back to your story.
Yes.
So then you get this phone call from this friend who says, your daughter Ava came to me crying and she said, you're giving up. Then what?
I wanted more. I cried. Somebody has seen that I gave up. And it wasn't a person. It wasn't an institution. It was literally the reason I gave up. I got to express the thing that I was never able to express.
Which was?
I can't do this and I have no help and I surrender. So giving up, to hear her say those exact words for me, I got to express being seen. I got to be seen fully in a moment that was my rock bottom. And sometimes we got to hit that moment. So being seen in that moment was immediately like, I want more. I also, because I got to express it, I also want to understand it. So yes, I want more. And hey, I have hope now because I realize I have help. So she didn't just say those words, if I give up. It was also like, I'm right beside you. I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to help you fix your broken heart. Ava was a cardiac patient at Sick Kids here in Toronto. And she had heart surgery her very first day and it was successful. Like I took home a 10-day-old baby with a successful heart surgery, only to have suddenly not the reason that she actually passed away. Her autopsy was that had healed. So it's almost like I went through all this stuff and it was still the same outcome. So one of her things that she had said to Tiffany was, Tiffany is the medium extended family member. One of the things she had said to her was, Mommy, I'm going to fix your broken heart now. And she laughed. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because your heart was broken and now mine's really, really broken. So it almost gave me permission. So at that time, Dela, hope is profoundly powerful, hands down. Being seen in the worst of the worst is also profoundly powerful. And I think spirit is powerful because I'm a spirit and you're a spirit. We're just inhabiting this body. So to think that we question when we die, what happens? For me, that was a very clear indicator that she's not gone. And that's the story when somebody dies, is they're gone because they're not physically standing in front of me. There's almost like that feeling of being robbed of all the things we wanted to do with them, right? So to have them physically in front of you means you get to carry out the future you thought you were going to have, both theirs and yours and everyone else's. So with that being said, to have her in spirit, I'm hearing very clearly right now, to put it in a nutshell and to be very succinct and direct, this is my truth. And the only reason why I'm able to come out and talk about this so openly and transparently about spirit, about mediumship, about death, about life, is because they're all topics that need to be talked about. And if I've had this experience, I'm sure other people can move into it too. The reason why I view my daughter's death, as a gift, for a lot of the time when I started helping other bereaved parents and then other people who had grieved, there was like this undertone of, why did I have to lose you to be able to be of service to other people? And her response was, but Mom, that's the opposite of everything that I've told you and everything that you know. You didn't, in what you feel that you lost through grief and everything else, you have gained an everyday connection with me to truths that you never would have had. I'm more joyful now than I ever was in my entire life. She says, you have gained substantially more than what you believe that you lost. And that's true. But the only reason that is true is because I allowed her to show me how to do this. I allowed myself to question everything that I believe so I could find a deeper truth.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. I don't even know if I answered your question.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes. We're going through your story. There's a lot of people who may watch this and may be very resistant.
Absolutely. I was before that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that's really important. That's a really important part of this story is that, healing happens when you surrender. I think I got that so powerfully. And I think for a lot of people who have gone through major transformations in their lives, is at some point at the very rock bottom, they surrender. And that's a really common theme for everyone. And it certainly was for me. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's look at some of the comments. Julie said she heard you talk about Jaden, and she heard you.
Thank you, Julie.
Robert says, as I was a therapist for 15 years, I deal with death and grieving differently from others. Debbie says, you are a vessel and light, guiding others through their darkest journeys and time. Mary says, thank you for sharing your experiences and assisting others. Debbie says, this is so powerful. I am in tears. So am I, Debbie. So am I. Karen says, love you, Erin. Rosemary says, very, very powerful. Madeline says, I love your healing journey. Let's others know there's hope. Hope is so important. Hope is so important. And I heard hope, and I use it all the time. The person who taught it to me put it in this way. Hope stands for hang on, pain ends.
I love that.
I love that too.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yes. Fahrenheit says, I'm not sure if you ever healed, but I know that you learned to deal with it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I can only speak from my experience, and in everybody's journey through grief is differently. And as Robert had mentioned, he deals with it differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're 7 billion people having 7 billion experiences, and someone that may resonate and need my help, the next person over there is going to be like, I need Robert's help because his way of doing it works for me. That's actually perfect. I think it's perfect. And for me, I'm going to be really, really brave and say this because this is my truth. And it's based on my experience and my life journey. A lot of people, and myself included, for a very, very long time, it was almost like you learned to cope with it. I learned to cope with it because I didn't process it. That was my experience. Going through the process of grieving with my daughter in spirit change that. I don't have or don't require coping mechanisms to deal with grief. So that's because I know that my daughter's there. I know that I have help. I know that she's not gone. And I've actually gone through all of those layers of grief. Is there some days where I might cry over something beautiful? Listen, I cry when I'm happy.
I cry when I'm happy too.
I cry when I'm happy.
At the American Idol. So.
Yeah. So, yes, for me personally, my journey and my truth, and it's not everybody's truth, and that's okay. It doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you're in the wrong place, because I've been in that place too. But for me, there isn't coping mechanisms. Like, I know when my loved ones pass away, in the future, I already know that I can cry at not experiencing the physical journey, but I also know I get to experience them in every aspect of who they are and heal things that potentially didn't get healed in life. So my view of death is I don't require coping mechanisms because I went through the process. Every time you go through a layer of grief and identifying things, it allows you to express it. It allows you to understand it, experiment with it, whatever you'd like to call it. And it's only at that point when it becomes outside of you that you can observe it and integrate whatever that means for you, or whatever it uncovers for you. So that's my truth. I have a really hard time actually saying that, because it's hard to say that to another bereaved parent who's in the thick of it, because I know exactly how hopeless and how unending that feels like. But in the next breath, Dela, I'm also going to tell you that I don't experience that anymore because I've done this specific process. And that's just my truth.
So can I ask you something?
Yeah.
When we hear the word grief,
mm-hmm.
it has such a heavy...
It says, run away!
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very heavy, like with emotion. It's dark and it's sad, and it tells me I can't smile, and it tells me I can't be happy, and it tells me I can't have joy in my life. That's what grief means to me. Is that the true meaning for grief, or is that the meaning we give to it, and it's because of our societal rules and how we grow up? I'm thinking at my birth country, Iran, when someone dies, the people who are grieving forever. They're grieving forever. They wear black for 40 days.
Oh my goodness.
They're not allowed to smile. Don't even think about, enjoying your life. You can't, if you're a woman, you can't wear makeup. If you can't do your nails, it's heavy. It's heavy with tension and misery and sadness. And I don't know if they're ever allowed to get over it, because society says, you've lost someone. How can you smile? How can you be happy?
Mm-hmm.
So we kill that desire inside of us because, we can't.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's both conditioning, and I think there are very real truths about grief. So when I look at grief, the reason why that word makes us run is because we associate that, we label it, we understand it as loss, unwanted change, everything that we don't want, right? Where we live in a society, it's like, if you're unhappy, it's because you're doing something wrong and you need to do this. That's not always the case. So we have all of these external factors that are saying, it's this, and you can't be this, and you should be that, and this and that and the other thing. But then there's the internal process. Grief, for me, I separate them. So grief is love.
Okay.
When I'm grieving, I'm going to have anger. I'm angry that I couldn't save her. I'm angry that it happened. I'm angry that I lost an entire future that I expected. I'm angry. I'm angry at all the things I didn't do. I'm angry at the things I did do. I'm angry at the people around me for also not doing and doing all the things that they did because it ended in this result. That's anger at the circumstance. That's not grief. Keep going down the line. So we associate grief with all these dark emotions. Sadness is an emotion that probably every human being will experience on some level or capacity. And that's okay. It's okay to be sad. Listen, if I cared about nothing and I had no emotions, well, then I would never be sad, would I? So it's kind of like you have two ends of the spectrum that both are valid and they're both informing each other. And we tend to only want to be in the happy one. And when we get to this sad one, so like grief, we lump everything in together. No wonder we don't want to deal with grief. No wonder we're freaking afraid of death based on the expectations and the things that society tells us about it. I'm hearing I need to tell you something about that afterwards. But with that being said, if grief is love, yes, we grieve forever. You are love. I'm never going to stop loving my children, whether they're here in their body or whether it's Ava in spirit. I will love her forever. And grief is literally that love. The anger, the judgment, the shame, the regret, the blame, because I blamed a lot of people too. I went through all of those different layers and there's so many more to it. Those are all the really heavy, dark things that nobody wants to perhaps experience with you, don't want to hear or witness, because that means they have to consider, well, what do I think about death and grief? And a lot of people, we don't want to think about that. So yes, I do believe we grieve forever, but grief to me is love.
Oh,
and all the other stuff, if you can separate out what is what and understand, is that part of the grief process? Yes, they are. But if I'm angry because somebody crossed my boundaries, I'm not going to, it's, why is it that just grief is labeled as all of those things when really you can compartmentalize them? It makes it easier to process them. It makes it easier to keep that love portion of how much you love them in the mix when you're going through the grief process.
The sparkles.
Yeah. And a lot of times, for me in my experience, that was missed. It was. And, some people go through the grief experience and everybody shows up for them and they find an amazing therapist that totally witnesses and takes them through EMDR or any of the other processes for PTSD and all of those things. And I think that's amazing. At the end of the day, if you have an avenue and someone that you trust who is helping you to move through that process, even if it's just sitting there in silence, because let me tell you, sitting with somebody in silence is grief is also valuable for a time and a place. Yes. Follow that. But if you're feeling like it's not working, or if you feel like you can't fully be seen, or if you feel like if things don't feel right, or it doesn't feel like a connection, then maybe try something else. And I think grief, we have this idea that we're supposed to fix it. And that's another reason why people dismiss grief, because there's a recognition, I can't fix this. That's finality. But the truth is, the grieving person, we don't want you to fix it. We don't need you to fix it. We just need you to walk beside us or stand there, whether it's in silence or witnessing us.
So Frida's my mom. And so she says, I went through the same. With no support until I was blessed with the birth of my beloved daughter 3 years later. That's me.
Yeah.
So my mom had a baby boy, her first, and he died shortly after he was born. And, all these years, so now it's more than 50 years, 52 years now. Mm-hmm. I know that she's been grieving. Mm-hmm. She read your book. I think she was blessed. I'm a true believer in helping the world with sharing your story.
Thank you.
Wow.
Frida, thank you. I love you, Mama. And you too, Dela.
Wow. What are you hoping?
I hope for a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I hope for everybody to be able to reconnect back to themselves and invite in their loved ones and get to experience it, even just a minute capacity in the way that I have. It is profoundly healing and life-changing, and I really wish that for everyone, that the amount of struggle, the amount of suffering for people is not as intense. We suffer as long as we need to. For me, it was, I suffered until suddenly there was another option and there was hope. But if people don't know there's other options that may be for them, they just end up sitting in the suffering and struggling. So my wish is for everybody to be connected, to tap into that, because our loved ones aren't gone. They want to heal us and they want to love us. And they want to come up and say, Mommy, I was with you the whole darn time. How do you think you got Dela? Sorry. That just came through. But it really is, it's profoundly healing to have somebody witness and understand you, and also to know that they're right there with you. And everything that she kept mementos in a box that they were tucked away, were all seen. Every emotion, every thought was all seen by your brother, by your son. And I want people to know that, versus feeling like I've struggled with it for so long and I'm finally being heard. Yeah.
Wow. So this is officially the most emotional Dela's voice ever. But it's okay, because we're touching a lot of lives today, Erin. So I'm going to put up your website.
Thank you.
You can reach Erin on her website if you want to connect with her. Excuse me. Erin, what is the danger in resisting this?
In resisting connecting with spirit?
Yeah, like just opening up to this idea.
Yeah. There is no danger in not connecting to spirit, other than you're putting so much effort into logically going through life without help that's there for you. And, life is unpredictable and life is full of change. And I'm here to experience every facet of that. So to break that down, a lot of people have fear about connecting, and that's predominantly conditioning. It's belief systems that were given to us versus ones that we have through our own experiences and our own truth. So like a belief system would be, we need to have a secondary person to connect with God. So I can't talk to God unless I've done this or I've repented. And, connecting with spirits is demons work and all that. There's so many old conditioning beliefs that still exist today and people still go with. So I think fear is literally the fear of connecting is dangerous, because when you live in fear of the thing that is so healing and there for you to help you heal and grow and shift and move, if you're afraid of that, it's meant to refine you, not define you. So like grief and trauma, it defines us when we don't get to express it. We become attached to that wound or that idea of who we are in grief, when the purpose of it is literally to break you open and refine you, to refine who you are, how you experience life, depths of emotions, different ranges and facets. So to get back to your question, in that context, there is the only danger in not connecting is not getting to fully experience you and express yourself in all the incredible, momentous, joyful, up, down, whatever ways that you're intended to.
I just had an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either look at grief and feel fear, or you can look at it and feel love.
Yeah.
I choose love.
Yeah. But here's and it's very true. You can look at it in that capacity. It's true. The expression of it allows someone to get to that epiphany, being able to express that full experience of grief. And then, you do get to choose love. And if you move into grief, knowing it off the bat, that with grief is love and everything else is that, yes. I love it, Dela. I like that.
Touched me. Wow, Erin, what can I say? I'm so blessed to have met you. Thank you.
I feel the same about you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Amazing. So I'm going to give you just a couple of more minutes. I don't want to let you go, but I want to give you a couple of more minutes to finish off with whatever you like. And Patrick says hugs to you both as well.
Oh, all of you are so lovely. I'm so grateful that you joined us because it's not an easy conversation to have. It's really not. But it is part of our life. Yeah. There's just no way around it. And I'm not really sure what I want to add to that you haven't already delved into. It was a beautiful interweaving. I think it's just that, when we attach ourselves to a one definition of what our belief system is, grief really is the breaking open of all of that to allow you to explore it. And that is the sole purpose of grief. It is to refine you, to help you to bloom, for lack of a better word, because blooming and grief don't really go together. Grieving is a death. We die a million little deaths every day. Every moment we breathe in and we breathe out, we're exhaling. And you never know when your time is. And when we're afraid of death or dying, we're inherently afraid of living. And that became very, very true for me, clearly through that experience of those 7 years. It really, really, in a profound way, impacted my life. And I've watched it impact multiple other people's through learning to connect and reevaluating what's true for them. And I think that everybody deserves that opportunity.
Everybody does.
Thank you.
Everybody does, Erin. Everybody deserves to live a happy, joyful life. Mm-hmm. Buy this book, you guys. Let's turn it this way. Love You, Ava Baby by Erin E Chandler. Mm-hmm. It might just change your life and someone else's life. So thank you for being here. I want to thank every single person who's watched us today for all of your comments and experiences, for sharing with us the past hour. Thank you. And please share this talk with others who may find it inspiring as you have. And with that, I want to wish you the very best rest of your day. This has been another Dela's Voice, sparking your soul. Thank you. Bye, Erin.
Bye, Dela. Thank you.